And I was so glad it rained today because that knocked out golf and fishing, and it gave more incentive for men to be in church with their wives today than they would have had if it would have been nice outside. That would have been a temptation. They would have had to use more willpower. But with the rain outside, no question. Going to church with Mom today. Glad you're here. I'm glad to be here, and I look forward to sharing what God has for me. So if you'd like to, you can get out your iPhone and turn it to Titus, the second chapter. I brought my King James Version because if it was good enough for Peter and Paul, it's good enough for me. And had a great time getting ready today to come to church. It takes so much for a woman to get ready to go anywhere if she don't want to look like herself when she gets there. I tried to get myself looking like the lady that you see on the screen. I got the blue suit, but somehow the pose just wouldn't come. So I tried to get them to change that because that don't even look natural to me. But anyway, she's too big for her little. So we're just going to have a good time and we're going to enjoy the Lord. You know, God couldn't be everywhere. So somebody said God could not be everywhere, therefore he made mothers. And I love that. I like this one. When a frazzled mother sent her little boy to bed, she heard him grumbling to himself. Every time she gets tired, I'm the one who ends up having to take a nap. So we understand that, don't we? You know, go take a nap. I'm tired of you. One of your better choices. So I want to talk to you today about godly women. And I think in some way, women were intended to shape and to bring definition to every newborn that came into this world. I mean, it's hard to go through 9 months to carry a child. I've done that twice. And the first time, I got really, really sick after I'd gotten so big with Sean that I couldn't hardly eat. And so I woke up Johnny in the middle of the night. I thought I had. And I said to him, honey, pray for me. I'm so sick. He just threw his hand over on my belly and he said, Lord, help her to be a good mother. And at that point, I didn't know if he was going to live to be a father or not. Even though I was pregnant, I think I could have took him out at that moment. The book of Titus is the shortest of all the pastoral epistles. We used to say epistles in our church when I grew up because we didn't know how to silence some of that stuff and go through it. It looked like epistles to me down in Kentucky. So it was written by Apostle Paul. It was written to Titus, somebody that he mentored in ministry. And Titus was a pastor in a church and in area that had lost their moral moorings too. They had lost all of it. And they had taken the grace of God and considered that the grace of God gave them the freedom and the liberty to live like they wanted to live, that grace just covered it all, you know. There was a lady in the church singing, and she didn't have much covered, and she sung Calvary covers it all, but it wasn't covering it all that day. So they thought grace covered it all, and they were doing what they wanted to do. So it was to Titus in this circumstance that he was told to speak sound doctrine, things that become sound doctrine. And we need some sound doctrine spoken in this generation. We need some women who know how to measure how high the platform is and figure out what you've got to wear. Because, I mean, if you put it on and it ain't but 14 inches long and you come up 3 feet, you've just lost a lot. And some people that figure out how to turn things around on the platform and look as good from behind as they do in front. You know, you got to think about things. So Titus was in a world where people didn't know how to dress. I mean, I see teenagers now that look like they fell headlong into a tackle box. I'm like, where is the training? And you men need to put up your tackle box and stuff, your gear, because it don't look good on the ears and the nose and places, you know. You got kids that's so frustrated they're honing out great big holes in their ears. They don't know that will help them hear better. You know, I guess I think that helps you hear better, but that ain't even where you hear out of, your earlobe. So we need a lot of teaching and instruction today. And for the most part, it's all practical. It's not stuff that you have to understand the book of Revelations or the book of Daniel to get into. The toes in the book of Daniel, you might talk about toenail polish, but that would be about as good as it would get. But we need practical teaching. So the older women in Titus 2, 3 through 5 in the New King James Version says that older women be reverent in behavior, not slanderers, not given to much wine, teachers of good things, that they may admonish the young women to love their husbands, to love their children, to be discreet, chaste, homemakers. What's that? Good. Homemakers. That is Betty White, isn't it? Paula Dean and, let's see, who else is that? I don't think they were a part of the apostles. Let's come back to this. Good, obedient to their own husbands. So if you men try bossing other people's wives around, you're out of place. They only have to listen to their own husband. That's enough. For him and for her. That the word of God may not be blasphemed. Or if you want to go to the message, you've got guide older women in their lives of reverence so they end up as neither gossips nor drunks, but models of goodness by looking at them. The younger women, this is talking about looking at the older women. The younger women will know how to love their husbands and children. So if you sit around and call him the old man and carry on, you can expect that your daughter is going to do the same thing when she gets married. And we need to give an example, to be virtuous, to be pure, to keep a good house. I keep a good house. The house don't look very good inside, but the house is good. Be good wives. We don't want anyone looking down on God's message because of their behavior. You know what I mean? We don't want people looking down on God because of the way that the women of God behave themselves in our society, whether they're older women or younger women. And so it's our responsibility as older women to teach the younger women. That's why I like an opportunity to say something. I have to teach the older women because some of them didn't have any instruction either. And I had enough for all of us. Believe me, I've been told many times by someone who knows that my conscience is on steroids. And all the things I was taught, I don't teach you everything I was taught because a lot of it was not profitable for me or anybody else. But I mean, you know, there were days where you had to wear stockings that had seams up the back. And you could either make it look like the Ozark Mountains like this, or you could make us interstate look, or whatever you wanted to, you know. But you could wear those seam hose. And that when you went to church, they looked to see if you had them on, you know. All the gentlemen looked to see if the women had on those striped hose. I guess that's what they're looking for. So somebody has to teach somebody else what to do. I think some of the best things we can teach our young people right now is how to love their children and how to cook. Have you noticed something in your house that has 4 circles on it? And a door comes down. And that is not another place to store something. Older women have to tell younger women what that is. That's a stove, you know. And we need to understand and to know how to teach younger women, but we have to behave ourselves to do that. I really relate to this next thing I'm going to read to you. Too tired to sleep, I lay in bed. I think how nice when children grown, my time would again should be my own. So now I sit and rock alone, my hands at rest, the work all done. No little tots upon the floor, no fingerprints upon the door, no socks to mend, bruises to kiss. Aw, me, how could I miss the very things I grudge to do? Dear God, if there might be someone again who needed me. That is the cry of many older women. All of you 90 and above, raise your hand. We want to give special honor to older women. How many of you are 85 and above, really? I know we got some. You know what? I'm getting so old I can't see where the hands are raised. Okay. We got to pass out bells next Mother's Day so you can ring a bell. By then, my hearing will be gone. The definition of an older woman is those who've lived long enough to sort out the difference between that which is truly abiding in value and that which is of little or no value. It's being old enough to understand what something of value really is. Because we value total different things than we valued when we were younger. At least I do. When I was younger, well, I might not need to tell you what all I valued then. I didn't have much to value because I was raised in the country. We had outhouses and creeks to bathe in and all kinds of stuff that some people here wouldn't know what I'm talking about. We had the old wringer wash machines, and some of the things we valued was if we had somebody else to pin the clothes on the line, that was wonderful. You know, and if mother would quit having babies and we could quit hanging diapers, I mean, they all looked alike. It was a boring job to hang those diapers. You know, all of them white, all of them, well, not all of them white, but most of them white, hanging on the line. But my value system has changed, and I realize now that the really valuable thing of life is a relationship. All I want with my children, my grandchildren, my companion is a relationship. And I do everything I can, say amen, Wanda, to build a relationship with my kids. I travel, I go. The 5 weeks you miss me in the winter, I'm out at Sean's place taking his boys to school and spoiling them rotten. Taking them after school and getting something to eat. And Sean says it takes them a long time after I've left for them to quit asking to go by and get something to eat after school. And that's why they're so thin, you know. If I didn't go out there, you wouldn't be able to see them by the time I got there. But older women are to have reverent behavior. When I go in to dress, like I went into the hair place this week, and I said to him, look, make me look really good and just put me right on the edge of the generation beneath me. I don't want to look too old, but I don't want to look inappropriate, you know. And I have to keep fighting because somebody keeps getting in my hair in the nighttime and trying to turn it white, and I have to continually fight that thing because I've been brown-headed all my life. And so I know it's not the Lord. He made me with brown hair. But I fight that enemy that comes. We're not to be a gossip or a slanderer. You know, the days of long phone cords are over. I loved it when we had long phone cords because I could tell who the gossips were in the church. When I'd go to visit, they'd have a cord. One of them had been curly-cued, and it was stretched out. And they'd go all the way over into the bathroom. Who in the world needs to talk on the phone in the bathroom? A gossiper. It's too good to even stop to go to the bathroom. You've got to keep it going, you know. Now, with these cell phones, we don't know what's happening. But I'm telling you, you can turn them off once in a while. You're not that important. You don't have to answer them when you're eating. You don't have to answer them when someone's visiting you. You don't have to answer them all the time. It's so rude to be in somewhere. I was in the doctor's office the other day, and there was a man standing there talking on his cell phone, walking back and forth like this. He paced about 20, 30 minutes, and he didn't sit down the whole time. He talked like nobody else was around. I'd have liked to sit that guy down. Confiscated his cell phone for a while. I bet his wife would have liked that too. He may not even have one by now, as much as he talks on the phone. We're not to be given to wine, and I think that's relevant in our day. You know, and if alcohol makes a fool out of you, then you need to avoid it because you're bad enough before you start. You don't want to deteriorate your situation at all. You really need to think about it. If I drink this, am I going to be smarter or dumber? Am I going to act nicer or worse? You know, I don't let people drink at my house. If I had a drunk come home and fell in the front yard, that'd be where he'd stay all night and until they woke up and could get up. People, I don't like silliness that's out of your brain. You know, I can't help my humor. My mother gave it to me. She ruined every child she had with it. So on Mother's Day, I'm honoring her today. You're getting a big dose of my mom's humor. We didn't have money. We had to do something. We didn't go nowhere but church, so we laughed about y'all. When I was a little girl, we lived about 2 doors up from a store, and I'd go down there and they'd ask me to mimic how the saints shouted. Back in those days, the saints danced. They danced in the Spirit. They got in the Spirit, and they danced and they danced. We didn't have any of this thing like this, you know, that everybody had their eyes open and did that. You know, we had helicopter, woo, and a few other things. You know, we thought it had to be totally out of control, or it wasn't God. That you couldn't worship God, but just dancing, choosing to dance before the Lord. You know, we had to get really violent and hit a few people around us so they'd all know we was dancing. I loved the one of the lady that was, she was always down in the pew, and before she'd get ready to dance, she'd say to the person next to me, excuse me, excuse me, excuse me, excuse me, excuse me, excuse me. She had manners all the way to the end. When she got to the end, it just hit her, and she exploded. So you don't want to be a drunk. That's not a good thing to be. And you want to teach good things. You know, you're teaching your kids by what you do. Somebody said, well, I've told them. Hey, telling them is not teaching them. You have to show them. Moms have to know show and tell. You can't act one way, preach another, and expect the child to turn out right. Call your kids stupid? What do you think? I mean, would you like other people to do that to your children? Don't you call mine stupid. You know, I nearly crucified 100 church members when my children were little, because I told them, leave my kids alone. You stay off my kids. I take care of my kids, and I'm right here. You know, some of them was telling them they had to be better than everybody else because they's preacher's kids. I said, that's the stupidest thing I ever heard. Kids are kids. There ain't no such thing as a preacher's kid. They're all made alike. They all look alike when they're born. They don't come out preaching. And it's a long way to raise a kid. And you don't put on a child more than it can bear. Let a kid be a kid while it's a kid, and it'll grow up when it grows up. But if you try to make a grown-up out of a kid, you're going to have a kid when it's a grown-up. That's sound teaching. That's good teaching, and I'm old enough to say that. My mother used to tell me that she got by with a few things because of her age. I'm starting to understand that. I try not to take advantage of it much. The lessons of life. The Greek word here, the Greek word for a teacher of the right, the teacher of the good. I'm really good with Greek, and this looks like kaleidoscope to me. So it means that you put it up to your eye, you turn it around and around and around, you get all those beautiful colors and scenes. That's how you decide what to teach, whatever is in there. And the women that are older are supposed to have a lot of wisdom, maturity, and experience. Have a wealth of knowledge to pass on to those willing to listen. And that's the part the younger women need to do, is get willing to listen. I don't care what you don't know what I know. And part of what you know is messed up. And part of what I know is messed up. But if I can take the part I know is good, and you'll listen to the part I know is good, you will have a wonderful experience in raising your family. I enjoyed raising my kids. And some of the best days of my life was raising my boys. I got up one morning to a note that Martin Vaughn had left me. Said, please sew, S-O-W, these paints, P-A-I-N-T-S. Now, I'm sure his congregation doesn't understand that he had paints he wore when he was little, but that was a really neat note. I love that. And I also have a note that he wrote me while he was at the airport one time after him and Becky had gotten married, and he swore to kill me if I ever read it or told it, so I'm holding that for next year. I got to wait till he's 40. I don't want the guy to die before 40. So we got a couple more years hanging on for that one. But it was an appreciation letter for the things I did. You know, like finding 2 socks that match. Anybody know what I'm talking about? If you've ever raised a little round boy, you've learned how to hem pants. You know what I mean? And Heather, what did I teach you when you got married? Sewing. I got a sewing basket. I went over to her house and I said, I'm going to teach you something. I'm not just going to give you a gift. I went over to her house. I taught her how to hem. I taught her how to sew on a button. And I told her how to stitch up clothes that were pulled open. And you know what? Not long after they got married, Kevin come to her with a button that was off, and she said, oh, I know how to sew that on. And she sewed that button on, and he thinks she knows how to sew. Nobody say nothing to him. He's way back to back, and hopefully he didn't hear that. So. Older women must live it and teach it. Younger women must learn it and live it. That's the part. We've got to live it and teach it. You can't expect your kids to get this stuff by osmosis. You know, I had to go ask my neighbor how to do the tulips this year because they didn't go away. The stuff kept growing up, the green stuff, but no flower. And they said, well, you turn it over and you put a rubber band around it, and then it dies, and the good stuff from that goes back into the ground for next year for it to bloom. I had to go find out because I didn't know how to plant a tulip. I can plant tomato plants. I know how to plant green beans. I know how to can green beans. I know how to make sauerkraut. I know how to boil water. I'll tell this one on Sean. When they were first married, Sean, he needed some good water, and they had some in the freezer. So he took it out, and he got him a pan out, and he set the jar, the jug, plastic jug, into the pan to thaw the water. It thawed a lot of stuff. And some of you may not know that Pastor Sloan is an artist, but his art is so different. I came in one day and smelled something funny. I opened the oven door, and there was the most gorgeous piece of artwork I'd ever seen. It was a plastic bowl that had melted and run down between the things in the oven. It was gorgeous. So you know there's things we all can learn in life. I've done some really sweet things. I've gone to the laundromat and put some soap in it. It washed the whole laundromat, you know. I didn't know better back in those times. Now we have that stuff that don't hardly suds, but back then it was really getting with it. And I was wishing I could get out of there, but I had my soapy clothes there, couldn't leave them. I wouldn't have anything to wear. Younger woman, the title younger woman, it basically means new or fresh, which seems to suggest the newly married or the new mother. We're to teach the newly married. What do you have to teach the newly married? The Bible said we have to teach them how to love their husbands. I can understand why you need to teach a woman how to love the husband. Oh, maybe yours was all totally lovable. I can understand why you have to teach a husband to love his wife. Don't you know that when you marry, you do marry the whole family? The lie that you don't marry the whole family, you're just rescuing them out of that awful family they're in. Oh, it isn't long till you realize they've got the traits of their family. It's like, where'd they get that from? Their mother acts like that. Their daddy acts like that. You know. You just can't get past it. They're going to be like the people they came from. There's a lot of options today, and I like it because when I talk about Mother's Day and I talk about women, there are more options today. In the first century, the only options were to be a prostitute or a temple prostitute or slavery. There was very few career women in those days. Now you have an opportunity. You may stay single. It's okay to stay single now. Back then, you were supposed to get a husband. My training was how to get a good husband and how wonderful it is. See what a good husband I picked? He's an awesome man. He's a hard-working man. He's a joy to be with. He has 2 wet feet. He puts one in his mouth, and then he takes one out and puts the other one in. My mom overheard him reading paper ads one day, and he was reading out loud, which is a mistake, and he said, "Pooty Pupples for sale." So that was quite a thing. You that are slow, just think about poodles and puppies. Poodle puppies for sale. No, that wasn't the way he read it. But we never know what's going to come out, you know. But it's always going to be interesting. I mean, last week he had the umbilical cord instead of the spinal cord. At least he didn't get as bad as Joseph Martin when he's talking about the tracheotomy, calling it an episiotomy on a man. God can help a single mom that's having to raise her children by herself. Let me tell you something, single mom. Don't try to be mom and dad both. Put God as the dad and you as the mom. And tell them you can only be their mother, but God can be their father. And quit working yourself to death trying to be a mom and a dad. You will never be a dad. You will always hear that baby cry. I used to, when we were young married, we were traveling in a trailer, 25-foot trailer, and Sean cried a lot. And John would get up next night and he'd talk about how we was up with the baby all night. I'm like, I didn't see no we. He was in the bed. I was up with the baby all night. You know. One night I told him, I said, I want you to get up with the baby tonight, because I was telling him that baby was up every 45 minutes the night before. And so he said, I don't believe that. That baby couldn't have been up there. I said, okay, tonight you're not. You're on shift. Next morning, that baby was up every 30 minutes. Here's some terrible opinions about that women come up with. If I wanted to take the easy way, I'd just settle down, get married, and raise some kids. Wow, what wisdom. Woo! Can tell that one hadn't raised anything. He hadn't even raised a goat. You'll have to have the one family in our church, Emanecker family, tell you about goats. They're good with those. It was a secret thing, but they got one in the basement one time and couldn't get it out, so he's behind the goat pushing it up. Praise God they didn't get smothered or killed by that incident, because it'd be terrible to be in the papers you died by a goat sitting on you. Here's another wonderful piece of wisdom. The life of a mother could be a great waste to my life and to my talent. I'll not let that happen to me. Wow. I don't know, but maybe your mother had that problem, but my mama raised intelligent kids like me. Supposed to be a couple more of those really nice. Okay, here's one of them. Motherhood looks boring. It actually seems unfair that a mother is stuck at home with screaming kids. I think that's bad too. She ought to put them screaming kids in the car and take them where everybody can hear them scream. We went to a laundromat one day, and it was this kind that had those things that go around and around, and unfortunately the thing that goes around and around was up toward the window, and the clerk was back at the back. And my son Sean slipped in under all those clothes to the window from the outside. And you think we could get on our hands and knees and crawl under all those clothes to get him? No. I mean, here's our kid at the picture window of the cleaners out and under all the clothes, you know. I mean, we were really having a boring day. You know, I wish we'd had a hook on him. We could have put him on one of those things and rode him back around, but that didn't happen. And then one woman said, I want to have a real job first. Then I can have marriage and motherhood later. And if I like the career, I don't want to get trapped. Well, I'd hate any kid to get trapped with you if that's the way you feel. But God says for the young woman to love her husband and children, to be virtuous, pure, keep a good house, be good wives. We don't want anybody looking down on God's message because of our behavior. The older women must live it and teach it, and the younger women must learn it and live it. That is the important part. I wanted to tell you about another couple things I got. Pastor, he's the kind that does his thing on the computer. I've learned how to cut a message short. You just take it and kind of go like that, and that does it for you. You know, you don't have to retype or anything. So you gotta love your children unconditionally. Love without partiality. Somebody said, well, all my kids are the same. Well, you're crazy. Because all your kids ain't the same. And some of them don't want you to love them like you love the other one. You've got to love them as they need to be loved. And I had some that wanted to talk and some that didn't. I only had two. You can figure out which one was which. 75% of a child's character and personality development is accomplished by the time he's 5 years old. Is that an important time? You bet it is. Ere a child reaches 7, lead him all the way to heaven. Better yet, the work will thrive if you begin before he's 5. People, we got it wrong. You put your kids in Christian school when they get in high school. That's silly. If you're going to put them in Christian school, put them in grade school where the foundation is. And by the time they get to high school, they'll respect you enough that they won't be having the same issues other people are having. And I'm not saying everybody has to go to Christian school. Some people cannot afford that. I understand that. But you've got to do a lot of teaching at home anyway. A burst of thunder sent a 3-year-old into his parents' bedroom. Mommy, I'm scared. The mother, half awake, said, go back to bed. Go back to your bed. Gotta be there with you. Small figure in the unlit doorway for a moment stood, and then he softly said, Mommy, I'll sleep with Daddy. You go in there and sleep with God. God was scaring him. I like the one where the little boy looked under the bed and come running out and said, Mama, Mama, there's somebody under my bed. She said, well, who is it? He said, I don't know. Can't tell if it's coming or going. She went in there and looked. He said, my teacher told me that dust we were, and to dust we should return. And I don't know if this guy's coming or going, but it sure was dusty under there. Another kid come home from Sunday school scared to death because the teacher told him if he missed one more Sunday, she's going to drop him from the register, and he thought she was going to put him in the furnace. You know, I think one of the best statements I've ever heard, this is how I put my sermons together. I think it's really neat. Like that. You put them in here. I think it's really neat. Moms are like Moses's. Or Moses' mama. She prepares a world she herself will never see. There's nothing that rings truer than that statement. Preparing a world that she will never really fully see. When France gave the Statue of Liberty to the United States, they looked and looked for an image that they could find that would be appropriate for the Statue of Liberty. And when they finally had looked everywhere they could, they eventually got an idea. And the guy who made the statue made it from the portrait of his own mother. We are the statue of liberty for our family that holds out the light and shows the way to a many troubled soul. Don't ever quit loving your child.